Welcome back to the Creating One podcast, and this is the summary and review of the Noel Diary. The movie is adapted from a novel by Richard Paul Evans. It's directed by Charles Shire, who is also the director of the Father of the Bride series. The movie is set on location in Connecticut, and it's basically about two people who have a connected past, and they decide to take a road trip to get the answers to some questions that they have about some events that occurred over their lifetime. They each find peace with confronting their past, but they don't realize the budding feelings that are coming between the two, and is basically causing one or the other or both to reevaluate the things that they used as coping mechanisms to cover for their feelings of abandonment. Jacob Turner, played by Justin Hartley from the series This Is Us, is a reclusive but successful fiction writer. He, along with his four-legged best friend Eva, he lives and resides in this swanky yet cozy home. He awakens one morning having had a book signing event the night before to a phone call that his mother has transitioned. The call is from the attorney that is in charge of finalizing her estate. So Jake decides to pack up Eva and he drives into town where he once lived and hasn't been there for over 20 years. It is very evident that grief and despair is permeating throughout this space. There is tons of hand sanitizers and books and just things that, the room is packed to the gills, and it's pretty much unkept throughout, with the exception of Jake's bedroom, which seems to look like the way in which he left it when he was 17 years old and he left to an adventure of the world. So Jake decides to spend his time helping to finalize the effects of his mom's home. He was left everything, so he's just going to pack up everything, discard what he needs, and keep it moving. But he is disrupted by a young woman named Rachel, who is played by Barrett Dawes of Station 19. She comes over after lurking outside. She wants to know if Jake knows a young lady who used to work there. And lo and behold, this young lady was Jake's nanny. This nanny is Rachel's birth mother. Rachel does not know the name of her birth mother, so her trail of location kind of went cold because her adoption records were sealed. But they were fortunate enough to give her the last known address of where her mother worked at the time of her birth. Jake, unfortunately, was a little boy and he doesn't recall her name, but he remembers the love and the joy that he had spent with her. But Rachel is determined, and so Jake decides, he comes up with the idea, let's go next door and talk to Ellie. Ellie has been living here for a long time and she may recall, but Ellie doesn't know either. But she does remember that the young lady's name, Rachel's birth mother, her name had something to do with Christmas. But she did suggest that he go and visit his father, who may know much more. Jake is reluctant to do this. He hasn't seen his father in over 30 years. Rachel just doesn't just get on the road to take this road trip with Jake. She spends some time Googling him, and this is where she finds out he is a, quite successful writer. He's not a starving artist, as which she initially believed him to be. So Rachel, Jake, and Ava, hit the road and decide to go and find some answers to their questions. And this is where we discover that Rachel is engaged. She's obviously reluctant about progressing with marriage. She's a very smart woman. She speaks several languages, and she is up for a job working with the UN as a translator. During Jake's search through the home and cleaning out things, he discovers a diary. And while sifting through the diary, Rachel discovers that her mother's name is Noel. Noel was 17 when she became pregnant with Rachel, and she felt abandoned by her parents because she was pregnant. Jake and Rachel are obviously growing closer through this adventure together. And on the night where Rachel tells him it is her birthday, they have dinner and they make love. Jake awakens the next morning and finds that Rachel is gone. And Rachel leaves him a letter to let him know that she is okay with not going forward with finding her mother, because she was pretty comfortable with knowing that her mother loved her. And she didn't just throw her away. She also speaks of how she's a bit confused now about her feelings for him and what she has awaiting for her back at home with her fiance. Jake decides to go on and find her mother. And he discovers, of course, that she is married and she is a nurse at a hospital. He also tracks down Rachel, who he offers his heart to. But Rachel is still not ready yet, and so she tells him she doesn't love him. She rebuffs his feelings and decides to, what it seems, continue on her life plans to marry her fiance. So Jake goes back to his family home and continues to work, and he discovers the letters that his mother had tucked away that his father had sent him. And here, this is where we find that Jake believed his father didn't reach out to him at all during those 30 years, but we discover that his mother hid the letters from Jake. And after Jake is ready to return to his home, he comes outside and he starts packing his SUV. And then Eva barks, and we look up and it's the beautiful Rachel standing across the street, and she's ready to take a chance to love him. The themes of this movie, one of which is the phrase reading between the lines. It appears throughout this work as one of the central themes. Jake as a fiction writer, and we know that writers, especially fiction writers, tend to write about adventures, and they create these superheroines or superhero type characters that aren't really quite real. This is their way of doing things on pages that they themselves are unable to do. If they feel powerless, they write about powerful characters. Through the journal that Jake finds that belongs to Noel, we find the au pair who cared for him, the truth that Rachel was seeking to finding the name of her mother. And then at the end, the letters that Jake finds hidden away that his father had wrote to him throughout 30 years when he thought his father had abandoned him. The road trip is another thing, because it is not just a metaphor for their journey to finding the answers to the questions that pondered them. It is also a journey where they start out as two unknowns who build this inseparable bond with each other. And finally, I would definitely consider watching this movie. It is not your traditional rom-com. There's a lot of drama there, but there's some really deep meaning. It's not cheesy, it's not fluffy, it's real. The characters there's a lot of realism to them. And I'm very interested in my takeaway in reading the book, because I just want to know more. A 98 or a 90-minute or whatever movie can't give you all of the bits and pieces. I mean, it gives you enough, but I'm definitely intrigued, and I definitely want to read the book. There was a part that I was a little uncomfortable with. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was very empathetic towards Rachel, but I have to admit that I was a little put off by her, sleeping with Jake, knowing that she has a fiance. I mean, that just further complicates her relationship. But I give her a pass because she does mention that. She's not completely confused about what she's doing with Jake. She's already confused about getting married to this man anyway. So she's pretty much feeling like she ties herself to things that help protect her and make her feel safe and secure. And as a child who has been adopted, she feels abandoned in a lot of ways, even though she has very loving parents. I have to admit, I was committed to them from the very beginning. I thought they were very cute, and I was looking forward to see how their story progressed. It's amazing how they start out. The first hotel that they go to, they emphatically 2 separate rooms. That has an adjoining door, of course. And then when they make another stop, Rachel decides there's only 1 room, that's fine. We'll take that. And my advice to, in support of Rachel and others who are in careers or in relationships that they feel are safe, but constantly pull you emotionally towards other things and other adventures, that you take some time and evaluate. Don't be, especially in relationships with people, because they're safe, loving them incompletely in a way in which they truly don't deserve. I think it's very important that we find our singleness, peace in our singleness, and discover who we truly are. Don't force yourself. And then one day someone walks into your life who is the person who you feel you're called to be with. I have seen throughout my life various people celebrate the phrase, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you with. But we live in a world now where so many people are unhappy because they're in jobs and in relationships with people that don't fulfill them. And when I say don't fulfill them, I don't mean they don't make them happy, but that person does not, come together with them in unison in a way that grows the relationship. It's stagnant. It's not necessarily boring, but there's no potential for growth. So if you're yearning for a relationship or a job or to travel or be someplace that you really truly want to be, don't settle for doing something that's comfortable. Life is about discovering who you are and growing in your faith and fellowship with God first. And your marriage in the world is merely a copy, a duplicate, a mirror image and reflection of the fellowship that you have with God. So there was a part in the movie that I thought was really cute. It's when Rachel asked Jake to play something on the piano. We discover that Justin Hartley cannot play the piano. Although his wife is very proficient in it, he's not. But Barrett Doss is a Broadway-trained credited singer, beautiful singer, and she speaks ASL. She doesn't speak Italian, she doesn't speak Spanish, she doesn't speak Mandarin, but she does speak ASL. So, do you think Rachel should have left her fiance for Jake? And if you like rom-coms, how does this one compare or contrast to the others that you may have seen similarly in its likeness? The ones that are on Hallmark, the ones that might be on BET that are more comedy and romance than drama. Let me know what you think. And if you have any other suggestions for Christmas movies or any movies in general that you'd like me to do a summary and review of, let me know in the comment section. All right. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.